What is good, you guys, and welcome back again on another episode. How are you doing today? Thank you so much for tuning in on today's episode. In today's video, we are going to be checking out this creator who is getting dragged for a particular comment she highlighted on a video that she made that went viral. She made a video literally, giving accolades to Tyler, the 21-year-old South African artist, if I'm correct, who made the viral song Make Me Sweat, Make Me Water that has been going viral for the past few weeks on TikTok today. I'm very sure if you're on TikTok, you have seen a lot of people, made videos to that particular song. Now, she made a video giving accolades to her, and in that video, which I'm not going to be playing because there is a copyright on that video. So in the video she made, she was giving accolades to Tyler, and she mentioned and called her black in that video. A South African person commented on that video and said she is not black, she is colored, and she made a video replying to that comment, and that video was the actual video that went viral. So in that video she was saying to them, Tyler is literally mixed race, and there are so many South African people saying if you call her mixed race, you are literally erasing a culture that they have literally fought tooth and nail. You're literally erasing their culture. So the response she made is what is getting her dragged, and let me just roll the clip of the response she made.
Y'all really would save yourself so much time if you checked yourself before you post it in the comment. I was gonna say something else, but I say, you know what? This is a miseducation. This is a country like barrier difference. Baby, colored is what they call the black people before we got rights in this country. Tyler is multiracial. That is what she is in American terms. You saying she's colored, not black, baby. That's why everybody's eating you up right now. Please research before you comment, guys. I'm about to do like a whole face routine. That's why I got my towel wrapped around me. But oh my God, please do your research, please.
So that was our response to that comment. And the South Africans were not having it at all. Like, how do you have a South African telling you that a South African artist is not black but colored? But you said, no, that does not exist in your dictionary. The South African person is the wrong person here, and you are the right person here. And they are still coming on her because of the fact that she mentioned that she has been to South Africa. And people are saying, if you've been to South Africa, how come you don't know about the colored people? How come you just want to erase their culture by literally just calling Tyler black, especially when she had already made it clear in a video that she is a colored person? I want you to stick around and let's check out what these people have to say in these stitches. One thing for sure in these stitches is that you are going to get to learn more about the colored people in South Africa, because a lot of people were saying, oh yeah, the black American lady is right, and a lot of people were saying, oh, she should have educated herself, she's wrong. What do you guys think even before listening to the stitches? And if you are the people who don't know about the colored culture in South Africa, you are about to find out so much about them in these stitches, because I have put together the stitches that literally covered a whole lot about the colored people in South Africa. And let's just watch the stitches and learn together.
Y'all really would save yourself so much time if you checked yourself before you post it in the comments.
Everything she says in this video is so ironic because she could have checked herself before making that video. So here's the context. She's responding to that commenter saying that Tyler is colored, not black. Because in a previous video, she said this.
I am loving how Tila is having a moment right now of her song Water. She is a South African artist, and black R&B girls, it is hard to get the eyes on them.
Like she said in that very video, a South African artist, and she has a South African person in her comments telling her that she's colored, not black. And then goes on to say stuff like this.
This is a miseducation. This is a country like barrier difference. Baby, colored is what they call the black people before we got rights in this country.
And what country is Tyler from?
She is South African. She is South African.
Tyler is multiracial in American terms.
She is a South African artist. She is a South African artist.
Please research before you comment, guys.
If she had followed her own advice and done some research, she would have found that in South Africa, colored is a term from mixed ethnic origin. And while it may be offensive in some Western countries like the USA, she even says it's a country divide and talks about what the word means in America. A little bit of research could have told her that it's a neutral term in South Africa. And guess what? Tyler is of mixed descent. When looking at ethnic demographics of South Africa, you'll find colored people are a separate category from black. You didn't even need to do the research in ethnic terms of South Africa. You could have just looked at what she says herself. I saw a South African who did a great response to this that's tagged in the caption, but as a linguist I want people to understand something. Even if we can draw comparisons between American racial segregation and South African apartheid, and while many South Africans speak English just like Americans speak English, that does not mean we speak the same English. The world is a lot more diverse than many of us realize. The way we speak is also extremely diverse. Just because a word is offensive to you does not mean it's offensive to other people. Even when you acknowledge that it's some kind of country divide, you're talking to South Africans about a South African and telling them that the way you use the word is more correct. The way you speak English and the way you use words is not better or more correct than anybody else. Hopefully we all know by now that race was created for the purposes of segregating people on no scientific basis. What you define as a certain race is completely arbitrary. So there's literally nothing you could say about race that's scientifically more accurate than anybody else. Other people may use terms that are offensive to you, and that's okay because it's not offensive in their culture. They do not have to bend a rule backwards to accommodate you. They do not have to change their culture to accommodate your preferences. And if you're going to speak about people from a different culture, you need to understand that.
Y'all really would save yourself so much time if you checked yourself.
Calling a colored South African just black or just mixed race is such a deep oversimplification and erasure of the culture, history, language, and heritage that they have built for themselves as colored people out of so many different struggle scenarios such as South African slavery and apartheid within South Africa. Colored people have their own unique dialect of Afrikaans. Even though technically speaking Afrikaans was originally their language, they have still developed their own unique dialect of Afrikaans which they speak to this day. They have their own unique style, their own accent, their own way of speaking, their own way of life, culture, heritage, everything. And just calling them black or just calling them mixed race erases everything that they've built for themselves. And it's not fair that just because something is true in an American context, that must now automatically be true in a South African context. I'm a deep believer in the concept of two things can be true at once. Yes, the word colored within a Western context is problematic and should be seen as such, but that is not true of South Africa, and it's not fair to push American issues onto South Africans and to erase an entire group's heritage just because it's convenient for a Western person. Colored people are colored, just call them colored. It's not that difficult.
Time if you checked yourself.
Calling a colored South African just black or just mixed race is such a deep oversimplification and erasure of the culture, history, language, and heritage that they have built for themselves as colored people.
I am loving this whole colored black discourse currently going on because it's us South Africans basically saying, hey, stay in your American business. You don't get to come here and tell us how we define and treat our own people. However, this conversation is a little bit more nuanced than some of us may want to acknowledge, right? And I just want to discuss those points today. Now, disclaimer, I do know a lot more about American history than I do South African history, so feel free to check me in the comments if I say something out of place. Also, this video is not made with the intention to attack, instead start a larger conversation. So feel free to add your opinions in the comment section. I'm always eager to learn. Now, with that said, let us discuss. One of the points that I'm seeing made a lot is that you cannot just call colored people black because it is dismissive of the culture, the heritage, the dialect that they have created for themselves, right? But when you really look at this point, it doesn't really stand because it implies that black people are a monolith, and that is totally false. Black people also come from a diverse set of cultures, languages, heritages. So the argument doesn't really make sense from that point of view, because you can still get a black person who can say, hi, my name is Tyrannique, I am black, and fall under the colored culture. Just as you can get a black person who can say, hi, my name is Temba, I'm black, but I'm part of the Zulu culture. So it could work that way. However, again, it gets a little bit more complex than this, so let us look at our history. The reason why the whole colored race was basically created, or the reason why people were categorized under coloreds, is because it was difficult for the system in place, apartheid, at that time, to simply classify them as either black or Indian or white. Because while they were a result of interracial relations, the relations weren't as black and white, right? It wasn't just as a result of black and white relationships, but also black and South Asian relations, white and South Asian relations. Therefore, grouping them under colored was just an easier way of giving them a race. However, we need to acknowledge that one of the most important points of the apartheid system was one's proximity to whiteness, right? So the closer you were to white, the more privileges you got, and the further you were away from white, the more cruelly or like badly you were treated, right? Therefore, within the colored sphere, you would get colored people being promoted to whiteness based on how passing they were. And this was, one of the smartest things the apartheid system could have done. I'm not praising it, right? But I'm acknowledging how smart it was. Because by doing this, right, by promoting certain colored people to white based on how passing they were, because remember, proximity to whiteness was everything during the apartheid system, you sprinkled some anti-blackness in there, because now you associated your proximity to whiteness with more privilege, with more benefits, with better treatment. When the apartheid system collapsed, and I use collapsed very lightly because we still see ripple effects in today's time. When it collapsed, you got colored people fighting tooth and nail to not be categorized as black, because the system had already instilled this ideology that being closer to blackness or being categorized as black was a no-go, because that meant no more privileges, no more, systematic power, none of that. This is why you even get some colored people who pass as black, who are even darker than me, with more coarse hair than me. This is not me saying that those identities make a black person, but who are clearly, present as black, argue with you tooth and nail, because to them, being black is just not a good association at all. So as much as we want to acknowledge that, yes, it would be dismissive to just call them all black, because some of them don't even have a drop of blackness in them. You're just erasing their heritage. We also need to acknowledge why the pushback is happening, because this is not the first time we've had this conversation within the South African context, right? Because anti-blackness and racism kind of have elements within that whole argument as well. So this conversation is very it's very nuanced, right? Therefore, I feel Americans need to educate themselves on South African history in order to fully understand what they're saying before they start making this label all colored people as black argument. But South Africans also need to make themselves aware of the American slave system and all of the complexities and issues that came with that in order to be able to recognize the parallels. So as we move forward with that, let us recognize all of these isms and phobias and antis, in order to properly make informed arguments for the conversation. And that's all I have to say.
This is a miseducation.
You know what it's giving? Actually, no. You know what the fact is? The fact is that you said you came to South Africa, you've been to Johannesburg. So in my head, I'm like, okay, cool, you've been to Johannesburg, so you must come across the culture, the ethnic group, and you must know that we regard ourselves as colored. But you decided that it doesn't exist for you. So watch the South Africans troll you absolutely as they should, as we should. Me as a colored person, absolutely I will troll you. Because culturally, we are colored, 100%. Politically, we are black. Tyla herself is very proud to call herself colored. However, because she's in the USA, she understands that she adapts to being black. And obviously because being colored in the USA is a controversial term. But you, as someone who visited South Africa, Johannesburg, you are like, oh no, I don't know of colored. Yeah, don't let me get you. Don't let me start. Don't let me get the colored outs.
Tyla is multiracial. That is what she is in American terms.
Let's play a little game called Guess Her Race. Go, Kim Kardashian. And never is yet, because I know for an absolute fact that not everybody gave the same answer to that question. And I know that because I've had this exact discussion on TikTok, and there was this massive debate on whether or not Kim K was white. Armenian people were mad. Ooh, they was big mad, talking about how dare y'all classify her as white. Are y'all saying that all Armenian people are white? And then the Americans were like, obviously she's white. What are y'all talking about? Yet no one seemed to consider that maybe both sides are correct. Very similar concept in this discussion about Tyla and her race. Tyla herself and all of South Africa are obviously correct. She's colored. However, this creator is also technically correct when she said the part that I stitched at the beginning, that Tyla is mixed race in American terms. Keyword in American terms. The thing that a lot of people seem to be missing is that race is a social construct, as we know. It was literally pulled out of the booty holes of white Europeans in like 17th, 18th century Europe. They created this whole construct and system around it called racism, and then they spread that shit through colonialism, colonization, all that. So because of that, race operates differently depending on where you are in the world, the languages being used, the cultures that were created around it, all of that. So someone like the creator I stitched will probably be classified as black wherever they go in the world. But someone like Tyla may be classified differently depending on where she is in the world, who is perceiving her at that time. Race is all about perception. For example, going back to Kim K, her skin color, her hue is not the only factor that contributes to how her race is perceived. It's also her social status, her class, her wealth, her storyline, all of that. Let me clarify this because I know how y'all be. This video is not at all defending the original creator. They are obviously in the wrong, and it's even more disappointing that they've apparently been to South Africa, Johannesburg specifically, and the fact that you've been there and you still don't have an understanding of how race operates there, the history, the culture, that's obviously disappointing. I admit I had to take a step back when I first saw the video because I initially approached it from a judgmental standpoint because I was like, babe, how do we not know this? And even if you didn't know, how are you not listening to South Africans when they're telling you that you're wrong? And then, and this is what a lot of y'all are also doing, I did the whole, well, I'm not American, I'm Canadian. I don't have that same level of ignorance. I already knew that about the different racial classifications in South Africa, but I've also been to South Africa as well, Cape Town specifically, and I went there to study, to understand apartheid, to understand the culture and the history. So for all of y'all being hella judgmental, listen, it's valid. It's valid, but a lot of y'all also don't understand that race operates differently depending on where you are in the world, and y'all have made a very similar mistake to this creator in different contexts about different people. Y'all remember that debate about that Tunisian artist on TikTok who moved to the States and everyone's talking about how she's white, but then all the Tunisians were like, no, she's not white, even though both of y'all were correct? I'm just saying that outside of the South African people who have been creating education around this topic, I'm seeing a lot of y'all pass judgment toward this American black woman who made this big ass obvious mistake. Meanwhile, y'all have done very similar things. You just didn't do it in video format. You just didn't get caught arguing about someone's race on TikTok. Meanwhile, the people that you're arguing with may have a different understanding and perception of race based on where they are in the world. When it comes to somebody's race, sometimes there is more than one correct answer. If you filled a room with one person from every country in the world and you sat Tyla in front of all of them, not everybody is going to give you the same answer. You're going to get varying answers. So if you're not South African and you're having fun at this creator's expense, you're talking shit, you're laughing, you're creating the stitches, you're commenting, and you didn't know some of the stuff that I said in this video, check yourself. Okay? And that's all I had to say. Thank you.
I'd like to hear your thoughts about what they all said in the comment section. In the comment section, there were people saying they are just finding out that there are some South Africans that are referred to as colored, and I just feel like this is where it comes in. This is where we have to learn and teach each other. I love that aside from the fact that they are dragging her, there are people literally schooling, and then people like us get to learn from what they have to say. Let me hear your thoughts about what they all said in the comment section. Thank you all so much for joining, and if you have not subscribed, please smash the subscribe button and turn your bell notification on, and I am going to see you guys in the next one. Bye, and I love you guys.